No, it's not a joke.
Okay, good evening to you all. I'm going to gavel our meeting to order. Obviously, this is a different type meeting than our regular business meeting, so tonight is our work session. And we have a limited agenda, so we should be able to move through this fairly quickly, I believe. So I'm going to start the meeting by asking our attorney this evening, if she doesn't mind, who's sort of helping out since our town clerk is not here. Would you call the roll, please, ma'am?
Yes. Mayor Marshburn?
I am present.
Mayor Pro Tem Behringer?
Here.
Councilman Dellinger?
Here?
Councilman Vance?
Here.
Councilman Singleton?
Here.
and Councilman Matthews?
Here. Okay, thank you very much. Have full attendance tonight. That's great. So, council, you have the agenda before you this evening. As I mentioned, it's a limited agenda tonight. So, I would entertain a motion that for adoption of the agenda, please.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And if you oppose, no, and there is no opposition. So thank you very much. Okay, you'll notice the one main item under discussion and reports this evening has to do with commuter rail study, progress update, and something I'm pretty excited about. And so I believe John Hodges is going to do the honors of introducing our presenters this evening. Is that right, John?
Yes, sir. I am introducing our presenters tonight because Ms. Gabby Lontos Lalo, that would typically be here introducing them, gave birth to her child last night. Mother and family are all doing well, so she is obviously not being able to be with us tonight. Mr. Triesenberg is with us remotely, though, so if there's any questions for him or things that he would like to interject after the presentation, he's available to do that as well. We do have two guests with us tonight from our Go Triangle. Catherine Eggleston is the Chief Development Officer who is spearheading the work on the commuter rail project, as well as Inez Nicholson, Community Engagement Specialist. Did I get that right? All right, very good. And so I'm going to turn this over to them and let them present, and then staff will be glad to jump in and answer any questions along with them as is appropriate.
Welcome to you both.
Thank you so
Pleasure
much.
to have you with us tonight.
Great, thanks so much. And thank you, John, for the introduction. So I'm just gonna start out here with a few slides on an update on where we're at with the current phase of the Greater Triangle Commuter Rail Study. And then I'm gonna hand it over to Inez to give you an update on the public engagement efforts that she and her team have been doing throughout the Triangle over the past year or so.
Good.
So as a table setting here, the Greater Triangle Commuter Rail Study is a feasibility study that's being undertaken right now by 8 partners. Go Triangle is the project sponsor. We have funding for the study from Durham County, Wake County, and Johnston County. We also are working very closely with the 2 MPOs in our region, CAMPO, which Garner is a member of CAMPO, as well as the Durham Chapel Hill Carborough MPO for the Western Triangle. And we're working closely with our kind of local railroad parties in North Carolina DOT, Rail Division specifically, and with NCRR, the North Carolina Railroad Company that owns the corridor that we're looking at for this study. So some information about this corridor. As you all know, the North Carolina Railroad Company owns the railroad corridor that's out there today that runs sort of east-west through the Triangle, connects Durham, RTP, Cary, Raleigh, Garner, and continues out east, well, sort of east into the south towards the beach. So this corridor currently today is mostly a single track. There's some areas with passing sidings and so forth, but mostly a single mainline track that carries freight traffic and some intercity rail service out there today. Between Raleigh and Charlotte, there's the state-sponsored Piedmont Amtrak service, and then there's also the Carolinian service, obviously, that runs up to the north. So the infrastructure that's out there today is there for in order to support that traffic that exists today. When we're talking about adding commuter rail service at the levels that we're talking about, which would be 20 round trips a day or 40 trains a day, we're talking about adding additional tracks to that existing corridor. So that's really a big piece of what we're studying now, is what it would take to add that additional infrastructure in the corridor to support the service. The corridor that we're looking at specifically as part of this phase of study is what's highlighted in that kind of pinkish salmon color in the middle there, from Durham to Clayton. So as part of an initial phase of study that wrapped up early last year, we looked at a wider area from Mebane to Selma. And in that area, we're looking for a project that could be identified as a phase 1 for construction that would be eligible for federal funding. Projects like this often seek a significant amount of money from the federal government through a grant program that's administered by the Federal Transit Administration. And in order to access that federal money, there are certain criteria that the project has to meet. So the effort that concluded last year was to identify what within this larger corridor of Mebane to Selma could potentially make a good project that would be eligible for that grant money. So what came out of that was 2 potential phase 1 projects, either a project from Durham to Clayton or a project from Durham to Garner as that phase 1, with obviously the potential for future expansion beyond that initial corridor. So that's what we're looking at now, and that would include stations in Durham, RTP, Morrisville, Cary, Raleigh, Garner, and then as well as potentially also Clayton. So in this current phase of study, this feasibility phase that we're in now, we're really doing 3 primary categories of work. One we're calling rail analysis. This is really looking at what is the infrastructure, what is the service, where would the stations potentially go. So there's a large effort on that Go Triangle is leading with support from an engineering consultant. And then there's also a piece of that we're working on with North Carolina Railroad Company and DOT, that Norfolk Southern, as the primary railroad operator in this corridor, is really leading on. So that work with Norfolk Southern is underway. We actually have been getting some progress updates from them over the last few months and are looking forward to seeing some results from that, which is going to be key for this phase of feasibility, really to understand what we're looking at in terms of what infrastructure would need to be added to the corridor. So we're making good progress on that based on where we are today. The second category of work that we're doing, we're calling opportunity analysis. This is really looking at the potential benefits of the project in exchange for the significant investment in the infrastructure. What can the communities along the line expect to benefit from in terms of economic development, affordable housing access, land use, and so forth. So we're working primarily with TJ.gov as well as with an economic development consultant on that phase of the work, and that will be that is beginning to be available. Some of that work is starting to become available on our website, and more of it will be available as we kind of close out the year and head into early 2022. Then the last phase is engagement, which, as I mentioned, Inez will be speaking in some more detail here in a few minutes. So the last slide for me is this one, just again our key focus areas for this phase of the feasibility study. One of the key items that the 8 agencies that are leading this work have identified is that we really want to focus on those elements that we would consider to be critical success factors for the project. What are those things that we want to be very confident in before moving a project of this magnitude, of this duration, into an implementation phase? Railroad projects like this can take upwards of 10 years to complete, and so we want to make sure that before we really start that clock and start spending significant money to develop the project, that we have a good handle on those critical success factors, have a good plan for how to make sure that we're going to be able to be successful. So again, to kind of recap that, railroad coordination is really the key one in a corridor like this. In order to be able to add the commuter rail service, we have to have buy-in from those railroad partners, the railroad owner, NCRR, as well as the operators out there today, primarily Norfolk Southern, to a limited extent CSX, and then as well as Amtrak and the state-sponsored service. And then all these other items, the local engagement, the kind of engineering feasibility of it all, ensuring we have a good cost estimate, evaluating those decision-making metrics to ensure that the local governments that would be funding the project, the counties, the MPOs, and Go Triangle's board that direct that transit, the dedicated sales taxes for transit, that they feel confident that the investment will provide sufficient return. And then, to a lesser extent, monitoring federal funding eligibility. As I mentioned, that was a key part of our phase 1 work, facilitating cost-sharing discussions between primarily Durham and Wake, and then also if there's going to be a Johnston component, getting an understanding of that. And then lastly, building capacity for implementation. And that can be summed up in both Go Triangle's capacity to actually manage the design and construction effort for the project, as well as agreements with local partners to ensure that we have the what's essential to actually get the facilities constructed along the alignment. So that's a key one for this council and for the town staff that we've been working on facilities, looking at potential station locations, identifying opportunities for park and ride, as well as identifying opportunities for maintenance facility, which could be located in Garner or Clayton or potentially elsewhere along the line. But that's where where we think a first pass would look at to site that facility. So there's a lot baked in there. From a timing perspective, we're looking to have the technical work on this work that I've just been describing to become available to begin going out to our partners and decision makers in the early part of next year. So we really appreciate the opportunity to kind of get on your radar today. So that we can kind of look forward to coming back to see you again within probably the first half of 2022. So at this point, I'm going to hand it over to Inez to fill you in on that public engagement that we've been doing in the Triangle, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Inez.
So like Catherine mentioned, I'm on the public engagement team. So our team's mission is to bring all this technical information to the public, to collect questions, gather any feedback, address any concerns to bring back to our planning team to kind of bake that into what the service might look like and how it can serve the community. So our biggest, or I guess most newest announcement is this picture that you're looking at of our transit information station. This is an in-person spot in downtown Durham where folks can go to get project information, get any transit related information. Then we also hold stakeholder meetings here. And then just a high level of our engagement to date. We've conducted 2 rounds of engagement. The first round took place in the latter part of 2020 in a 3-part survey, which I'll dive into the details of that. And the next slide, a second round of engagement that took place this summer, and that was a big education and advocacy push where our team was out in the community providing project-related information. Of course, this took place both in person and virtual, so being creative of how we can reach the community, both going to events, going to community meetings, and then making our engagement interesting virtually. I'll give you a little taste of what our engagement materials look like, both in print, digital, and online, and then we'll wrap it up with our 3rd round of engagement that'll be taking place next month. So like I said, we've been busy out in the field this summer. That's looked like 355 hours of canvassing to businesses, tabling and attending community events in person. So for example, this is my coworker Nathan. We set up at the Go Raleigh station with commuter rail information, with transit information, and free little transit goodies to talk to current transit riders about how they might use a new service in the future. So going back to that virtual engagement piece, we've spent 131 hours in virtual presentations and virtual community meetings and listening sessions. For example, this first picture is from a screenshot where we partnered with Dorcas Ministries in Cary. A need that they heard from the folks that they serve is they don't know how to ride the bus, especially during a pandemic. So we partnered with them to give that information on how to plan a trip using the Go Triangle services and the Go Cary services. Also gave some commuter rail information, and then we sent Dorcas Ministries like thank you bags for them to send to the participants. So just again getting creative with how we can engage with the community. So diving a little bit deeper into these touch points by tactic, again, a lot of community group meetings, meeting with folks who serve the community, hosting these listening sessions, giving presentations both in person and virtually, going to those community events, setting up tables to have that information and have those organic conversations with the public, and then again canvassing directly to businesses along the corridor. So as you saw, those proposed stations touch on 3 counties, Durham, Wake, and Johnston. So a big push has been in Durham County, along with Wake, a little sliver in Johnston County. And then this regional piece is when we interact with businesses or organizations that touch on 2 or more counties. So diving deeper to when we canvass businesses, this is when our team directly approaches a business asking if they can distribute information on our behalf. So giving it to their clients, customers, employees, however they see best fit. And then as you can see, a big push has been on minority businesses. So about 75% of those businesses are Black or Hispanic owned. And then these logos to the right kind of give you a taste of the businesses that we interacted with. We've given quite a few stakeholder presentations, like this one, whether it's nonprofit, for-profit, our transit partners, municipalities, whoever wants to receive this information will show up to give it just directly from the horse's mouth. So Catherine mentioned the project website. This is it, GarnerNC.gov. We launched it late April. Since then, we've had about 36,000 page views. A big ask that we have on this page is for folks to sign up to be what we call commuter rail insiders. This is when you give us your email, and in turn we provide you with project-related updates. This just has a list of the top 5 most visited pages. As you can see, the second most visited page besides a home page is a proposed station. So folks are super interested in where their station would be to get to where they work, to where they play, or how you can interact with the rest of the region. Another form of engagement is tried and true email campaigns, making sure all of our audiences we have on our listservs are kept in the loop. So that commuter rail insider list that I mentioned, and then also folks that have signed up for Durham and Wake Transit Plan updates. And then we have a hefty list of our regional community contacts, making sure that everyone is in the loop of what's going on in this feasibility study. Another fun piece of engagement I want to highlight is our partnership with the Durham County Public Library System. We gave them some ready for rail literature, and in turn they selected some books on like transit and trains, and they set up 2 displays, one in like the adult section, one in the children's section. Usually these go on for about 30 days, but it did so well and performed so well that they've asked us to extend another 30 days, so we provided some more brochures and hiring information. This right here is a breakdown of that survey that I talked about earlier, where we garnered 5,000 project-related comments. There's about 3,000 respondents to it. This is a breakdown of where those folks came from. You can see Garner on there, and then it's also interesting that towns not even along the corridor are interested. So there is a lot of spark, a lot of interest in this project. And then to wrap it up with that 3rd round of engagement, we're hosting a listening session next month, virtually via Zoom, November 18th from 6 to 8. Like I said, there's a lot of interest in that proposed station, so there we'll be taking a deeper look at what those could look like, getting feedback on how we can use those stations and this service to better serve the community. Our Go Triangle planning folks and our consultants will be there for a live Q&A. Like I said, you can register on our website, and at this point, we'll take any questions.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation, and yeah, we'll go around, Robin, and see what questions, comments our council has. So I'll start with Mr. Vance down here if he wants to.
Yes. First briefing, you were speaking about the feasibility studies and a few other activities that be going on. What's the next step?
Sure. So the next step will be at the conclusion of these feasibility study activities. We expect to be able to take a recommendation to the funding partner boards. So that's Go Triangle's board, the MPO boards, and the boards of either 2 or 3 counties, Durham and Wake, and potentially also Johnston, with a recommendation for when and how to move forward. So We're hoping out of this engagement with Norfolk Southern and all the remainder of the engagement kind of locally on the feasibility, that we'll have a recommendation for a project definition, either the Durham to Garner project or the Durham to Clayton project, to carry forward into implementation. We expect to be able to kind of confirm that and have all the information necessary to support decision by those funding partner boards on when and how to move forward. The current time frame for that is currently targeted to be the first half of 2022, kind of in that April to June time frame for decision making, but that is contingent on conclusion of the work with Norfolk Southern in the next few months. So as we begin to kind of get further engaged with them on the study that they're doing, we'll be able to confirm what that schedule will actually look like.
Will the feasibility study include stops?
Yeah, so that's part of what we're doing. So the stops that you saw on the map on this sheet, those are inputs into the work that Norfolk Southern is doing to kind of confirm what infrastructure would be needed to support stations at this set of locations here, which includes 2 in Garner, downtown Garner, and then 1 to the east, kind of where 540 will be. So that's what we've put forward with Norfolk Southern, what we hope to be able to confirm through this phase of feasibility study to move forward.
Okay, thank you.
And I can come back to you if you want to. Let me move to Mr. Matthews.
Yes, it was, I guess it was maybe a couple of years ago, when we're talking about commuter rail, then things started happening in Durham and all down that way. How does that play, and is that off the schedule now? Is that not going to happen, or is that going to be a part of this, or can you update us on that?
Sure. So the light rail project from Chapel Hill to Durham, which is I think what you're referring to as kind of the thing that was being advanced but has since been discontinued. So about 2 years ago now, it was decided between Durham and Orange County decision makers to discontinue pursuit of that project. And that project was light rail connecting Chapel Hill with Durham. Because of lack of confirmed support from some key local stakeholders, including NCRR, which was necessary to get a portion of the corridor through downtown Durham for that project, as well as Duke University, which was a major landowner along that corridor. So that project has been discontinued, and Durham and Orange both are updating their transit plans to identify what priorities they will spend their dedicated transit sales tax dollars on. So Durham is currently evaluating how funding for commuter rail, this project we're talking about right now, this is what's on the map here, how that funding partnership with Wake would be able to make this project move forward sooner than it would have been if they had still been continuing to work on the light rail project.
And my other question would be, obviously, it'd have to be dual tracks, what we're talking about, and right through the Garner it's single track. How are you finding the railroad is notorious for having it their way? How's this working out with you guys? I know you're meeting with them, trying to get some things done. How is that progressing? Are you finding them responsible? Or are they on board with this, or what's up and down on that?
Sure. So we've had an excellent partnership with North Carolina Railroad Company, which owns the corridor, as well as with NC.DOT Rail Division. We meet on a regular basis with them. They are supportive of the project, of the feasibility study, supportive of the infrastructure plan that we've developed. So the way this works is that we have developed proposal for the infrastructure, so that double track, and then identifying where there would be additional signals required and things like that associated with all these stations. And then we together, Go Triangle, NCRR, and NC.DOT have put forward that proposal to Norfolk Southern, the operating railroad, to model and confirm. So that's the stage we're at now, is Norfolk Southern is evaluating that proposal, and we'll have some back and forth with them over the coming months to really see where we are in terms of what support or concurrence they can provide for the plan.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Phil. I'll go to Mr. Dellinger.
Yes, thank you for the information. My question is, we're doing commuter rail in a lot of places that have absolutely no familiarity with commuter rail, not just the communities, but the local governments. You know, some people have traveled to other places and lived other places, but a lot haven't. And so my question is, what kind of support are you providing to municipalities to identify the opportunities and the risks, particularly around density and planning? And I bring that up specifically because we're, you know, kind of in the midst of housing affordability crisis that will be ongoing, and the benefits of rail can be undermined if there aren't diversely priced housing options that can utilize these stations. And so I'm curious as to the support that's being provided to local governments, and then also, is housing affordability a part of these conversations when it comes to accessibility and stops? And
Sure, absolutely. So I mentioned earlier that it's important for this project to ensure that it's eligible for federal funding. Part of the federal funding criteria is related to the ridership, but also another part is related to the corridor's maturity or ability to support an investment like this. And part of what's looked at for that is land use planning along the corridor, affordable housing, presence of affordable housing, deed restricted affordable housing in particular, and then local policies around accessibility to the corridor from surrounding areas. So these are things that are very important to Go Triangle to be working with local governments along the corridor to assess and kind of confirm that we're going to be able to meet those readiness criteria and be cognizant of exactly the factors that you're raising. I would ask John or Jeff if you all would like to speak to kind of how you see the collaboration so far, and then, you know, what you expect going forward.
Okay. So through the study, one of the early slides had three sort of things up there. One in the middle was one of the opportunities that it mentioned, affordable housing opportunity studies that Triangle J is leading. So staff's been a part of those discussions since that work began, and that's been going on for a little while now. So we've been providing all of our land use policies, all of our long-range planning to go into that, as all the other municipalities did. And then what we'll have when that information is published, is finalized and published, is we'll be able to take that and overlay it with any of our local planning that we're doing, because there, as Catherine said, we will have to do some work to think about how we're going to either encourage or protect opportunities for affordable housing, because by the time the plan is actually put in place, some of the opportunities that are there today may not be there tomorrow. So I think when we get that work finished, we'll be sharing that with you, and you'll see how that lays out several different looks at sort of what the opportunities are, what's naturally occurring there, and then where we can take it and go from there.
could you, and I'll pass it off, could you elaborate on the deed restricted affordable housing? Because I think that's something that we really need to be aware of as we're planning along the corridor where we have an interest.
Yeah, so one of the quantitative criteria that the Federal Transit Administration will look at in evaluating the corridor is the proportion of the overall county's deed restricted affordable housing that occurs in the corridor. Basically, on a percentage basis, how does the corridor compare to the county overall? Is there more of the deed restricted affordable housing present in the corridor versus the county overall? And the higher proportion, the better the score on that. So when communities in the corridor are looking at making investments in affordable housing where there are requirements related to the AMI of the residents and related to the duration of the affordability commitment, you know, the project will benefit if those investments are made in the station area.
Thank you so much.
I will say that affordable housing piece that she is talking about that TJ.gov produced for us is on our website if you want to take a deeper look at it.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go to Mr. Singleton.
Yes, thank you both for your presentation and your information. Question, and this may be getting into the weeds and be involved in the feasibility study. Talked about it being a single track and it's going to need additional infrastructure including added tracks. Had an S on the end, not an added track, but possibly tracks. So there's a possibility that portions of this from Durham to Garner, Clayton, we'll need to expand from one track to possibly more than two. Just depends on, I reckon, what you find out with the feasibility study right away, where it can go, what's, the possibility of it doing that.
That's right. That's right. Our proposal and what we believe should work from a capacity standpoint is one additional track. So where there is one, there would be two, and where there's some portions of the corridor where there are two now, there would be three. But we need that feedback from Norfolk Southern to confirm that our assumptions on that capacity comport with theirs. So it is a possibility that through this work we're doing with Norfolk Southern, there could be identified additional infrastructure needs, so portions where additional track would be required beyond what we have assumed so far.
Okay, so, and you talked about, you showed us a chart on here, let me find it. Yeah, where we are right now, the phase study, we are here, and the phase of the study, and then getting into preliminary engineering after doing feasibility study. You said hopefully you'll be through the feasibility study through the first 6 months of next year, hopefully. Okay, and then after meeting with all the interested parties and involved parties, then we move on to preliminary engineering. Okay, all right. Very good. All right, thank you.
Behringer?
I just have one question. It's maybe not directly related, but kind of. I appreciate the presentation, and I've been a big fan of commuter rail for a very long time. I'm glad to see it coming. But I have a question. The trains that go through Garner, now, particularly through the downtown area, travel through at a maximum of 59 miles an hour, which is too fast, especially for our growing downtown area. Do you have any suggestions about how we can get that speed reduced, or at least modified to some extent? When we granted that, that was several years ago, and the downtown was not nearly as developed as it is now, and it's going to only increase. That causes property damage to homes nearby, with causing their doors and windows to come out of alignment. So are there any suggestions about how to mitigate that?
Yeah, with respect to the existing trains, I think that's something that would need to be discussed with the operator. So from a freight perspective, Norfolk Southern, and from the intercity passenger service with DOT Rail Division, I guess. And so I'm happy to kind of take that back and note to the team that that's a concern that we heard here tonight. As far as what we would be looking at for impacts of the new trains, the commuter rail trains, impacts like what you're describing, particularly from vibration of the trains in the corridor based on its speed, that's something that would be part of a detailed study that we would do in that preliminary engineering phase. Kind of the next phase of work would take a deep look at that. In accordance with the Federal Transit Administration requirements for evaluation of the environmental assessment or environmental impacts.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I think it's implied, but the add-on track, would that be strictly used for our commuter rail, or would Norfolk or Southern get to use that any, or how would that work?
Yeah, so what we're looking at is a shared system. So it would be like a two-way road, basically. So the dispatching would determine which train should be on which track when throughout the day. But for the most part, the idea would be that it operates as a bi-directional system. So trains headed west would be on one track and trains headed east would be on the other track. So it provides better capacity, better flow for all of the trains. That's how we get kind of the most value out of that investment and minimize what additional infrastructure is actually required.
Okay. And the only other question I have is, I assume we have commitments from the federal government, assuming that we meet their criteria. I mean.
Right, so the Federal Transit Administration's grant program for this type of project has been around for decades and is very well documented what the criteria are. So it is discretionary, and that it's not, a formula where you necessarily get money based on your population size. It's discretionary where, you apply for it, but the criteria for that are very well defined, and so projects that are able to meet those criteria and demonstrate the readiness and ability to carry out the project do get those grants. So the risk that's related to the federal money is really maintaining those eligibility criteria.
Okay. And this is one maybe I don't need to know, but at any rate, it's anticipated that a train like this would run what hours of the day? I mean, it's not a 24-hour rail service, I assume.
Right, so the service level that we're looking at now would be approximately half-hourly service during the morning and evening peak hours. So say 5:30 to 9:30 in the morning and 4:30 to 7:30 in the evening, something like that. Where we'll look into that in more detail. And then a few trains in the midday. Right now, what we're looking at is 2 trains in the midday and then 2 trains in the evening. Through the work that Inez was describing, we have received a lot of interest in potential for a service pattern that's more all day as opposed to peak focused. So that is something that we're starting to look at to be able to be responsive to that. As well as with the pandemic, that's something that a lot of commuter rail operators and transit operators generally are looking at around the country, is how can they make the systems more usable for ridership that's not simply ridership that's going to a 9 to 5 traditional commute, but for people who have commutes throughout the day, including on weekends. But for us right now, what we're looking at is that peak focus service, kind of starting around 5:36 in the morning, going till about 10 o'clock with more trains in those peak commuting periods.
Okay, thank you, and I'll turn back to the council in a minute. John, do we, or Jeff, I guess, do we have a fairly good grasp on, what parking needs? I think maybe I wasn't supposed to ask that question. I don't know.
I think your question was, do we have a good grasp on parking needs?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
For the downtown station, there's some criteria that the system is looking for to make sure that we have a minimum parking available. So until we know exactly the location, we can't say that we have all of the parking worked out. But I believe that Catherine's team would agree that we've identified enough opportunities to support a station within downtown that is reasonable. And then we are looking at sites for the last station in Garner, which will either be the terminus if it doesn't go to Clayton, or it will be a commuter style station near 540 if it does go to Clayton. There are several parcels that we've identified in which enough parking could be assembled. So I think parking for the 2 stations is we feel really good about. I think the challenging part we're all working through now is having enough land to be able to assemble for the actual maintenance facility, right, which is desired to be on our end of the station, but that's a different facility than the station facility.
Okay, and just one quick follow-up. Obviously, we're getting more familiar with bus rapid transit and those kinds of things. Would we anticipate that either a circulator bus here or I don't know what we would call it, but would be something, a way to transport people to this train commuter station?
So the local bus service plan that council has adopted utilized the downtown area as sort of a hub for sort of a midpoint along the 70 corridor. And part of the reasons we included the loops into downtown was so that it could serve and make a connection between BRT, regular bus service, and the commuter rail. So that was planned ahead in the design of that route.
Thank you. All right, council follow-up questions, anybody? Yeah, Mr. Dellinger, go right ahead.
Yeah, so kind of a money question. So what kind of cost will municipalities be expected to cover? And when can we expect to get estimates, ballparks, and time horizons for knowing that information? So they can be plugged into like multi-year, I mean, this is further out than our multi-year goes, of course, but, and then what are sort of the ongoing operating costs that the municipality would have to cover?
So right now, the full capital cost, the full upfront capital cost and full ongoing operating costs are planned to be borne by those dedicated taxes for transit. So the half-cent sales tax and the associated registration fees that Go Triangle currently manages with the counties and the MPOs. I think where the potential for local costs comes in is with respect to kind of parking, access, ongoing kind of maintenance of the area. And so details for that type of thing would start to get fleshed out during the next phase, during preliminary engineering. So within the next 2 to 3 years, we should know kind of a little bit more about what opportunities there might be for smaller capital projects that the municipalities could lead related to ensuring there's adequate access from surrounding areas to stations and things like that.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a follow-up for this? Anybody? Well, unless you have other closing or summary things you want to say, I will thank you for coming out this evening and making a very good presentation. And yeah, I think Garner, most of our folks here are pleased to know that we are on the commuter rail line from the beginning, hopefully, from the beginning to the end. How shall I say that? At any rate, and we'll look forward to having you back. I don't know if it'll be you two, but at any rate, keep us in the loop, and we're quite interested in the progress that's being made. So thank you very much. Did you have any questions for us?
Well, we really appreciate the time, appreciate the questions and feedback, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Okay, thank you much. All right, see you down the road, as they say. Okay. Okay, let me see. John, was there anything else from you? No, go ahead.
Not on this
Yeah,
item
okay.
unless Mr. Triesenberg had anything.
Okay,
he wanted
Mr.
to add.
Triesenberg, anything else that you want to add, sir?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you much. All right, we will then move on our agenda to manager reports, and I'll recognize our town manager.
Mayor and Town Council have just a couple of reports. The upcoming schedule for November
Yes.
is in your packet, and you can see that meeting on Monday is fairly light also. Some things that you've seen before and familiar with are coming back to you. And then we got some more development reviews in the second meeting. If there's no questions about that.
Okay,
Any questions? about
Quick, the meetings in November, the conditional zonings, those are first public hearings on those that are going to Planning Commission.
I don't know if Jeff's still on. Are they all, have these all been to the Planning Commission already?
I think they come to us
I-
first.
Yeah, I believe there's a mix. If you could
Oh, the ones on the
refresh my memory on the projects. I can
Okay, the
tell.
ones on the UDO ones have been to the Planning Commission. Are you talking about on the first?
No, the second meeting in
second?
November.
Okay, yeah. So Tryon Apartments,
That's first public hearing.
Okay.
and then Spring Drive subdivision,
First public hearing as well.
Caddy Road South,
First public hearing.
and Beacon Commerce Building 3.
Yes, that is public hearing. That one I believe is a special use permit, so that would be the only hearing. If any of them are SUPs, it's the only hearing. If they're otherwise, they'll go to Planning Commission.
Thank you.
All right. So no more questions about that. I did want to cover one other item pretty quick. I don't know if you're hearing about this, but the U.S. Senate had talked about some flexibility for the ARP funds. And so they put together some legislation, and it did pass the Senate, and it's waiting to go through the House. And basically what it would do is give some flexibility on the use of funds, I guess, from some of the input that they were receiving. The Senate passed that you could spend the greater of 10 million or 30% of your total fiscal relief funding on infrastructure and other new categories. Now that has not been passed by the House yet, so it's not law yet. Now, the town is getting right around $10 million, just over $10 million, so that would give us more flexibility with the total amount of our allotment. You may be hearing that, some towns are using their funds already for some of these things. And the reason why some other locales and local governments can do that is because they're able to use amounts that amount to their revenue reduction. If they lost revenues and show that they lost revenues, they can use up to a certain amount of that pretty much in any way they want that is not breaking any of these rules. So it's more flexible than us that did not have a lot of revenue reduction. And then they also have some municipalities and counties that have qualified census tracts, and those further have more flexibility in how they can use the funds. So Garner's limited in both of those. We don't have, we didn't have a overall revenue reduction because sales taxes, for one thing, remain strong here, and we don't have the qualified census tracts because we're in a more I guess our county, Wake County, is just more what's the word I'm looking for? Not.
I think some of the areas that we've had that might have been qualified in the past have had some increases in some of the socioeconomic trends that we've seen in the past, and so they just simply don't qualify for the.
Yeah, I didn't want to say we're a rich county, but we're more well-to-do, I guess, than some other counties. So, so anyway, we're still tracking that, and the final guidance has not come out, but there is that is still looming around. So we're going to be looking at what that could do for us versus what the previous guidance that we thought was coming out would do. So it's still a work in progress, and we'll continue to update you on that. So.
Mr. Mayor, I have one comment or question. I read through the initial legislation and then some of the follow-up. In the sections about qualified census tracts set some automatic parameters for some uses, but there is language in there where a municipality can make an argument, justify the use for funds where it would have otherwise been automatic. And I think that's some of the language around some of the affordable housing affordability. There were automatic triggers for those qualified census tracts, but there's other language that if we made a case for the use of those funds in certain parts of town, that it could also potentially be eligible. So I want to make sure we're looking at the language very specifically for the projects we're looking for to make sure we're not automatically excluding ourselves from some things we may be able to do. So
That is one aspect. The town would have to show, as part of the justification, that there are disproportionately impacted communities or groups of individuals, and then address a program that has some kind of verifiable impact on those communities or individuals.
thank you.
Okay. Anything else for well, let's see, go ahead. Do you have anything else, Mr. Mayor?
That is it for me.
Okay.
Unless there's any
You got questions for him? Okay. As part of council reports, as the mayor, I want to go ahead and bring an item to council's attention that I need you to consider. Rodney and I have been in conversations with the county officials just this past week. And as you probably all know, the mask mandate that the county issued and that several municipalities, including ours, joined in with, that is expiring. Well, it went through the date of November 1. So from information that I have received and that Mr. Dickerson has received, the county intends to extend that mandate beyond November 1. And municipalities that originally signed on are asked to confirm their intentions as it relates to continuing along the same path with the mandate. One of the things, in my view, that has changed, and I'll ask Rodney to share some information with you, is that based on metrics and other information, as I understand it, the new mandate will not have a date certain when it'll be reviewed, but it will be based on metrics that are provided through medical people and others, and that would then determine when the mandate would be lifted. I personally think, from what I understand of it, that's a good way to do that. And as I think Rodney can share, some of the metrics we're in good shape on as a county. Some we need to get to a better place. So I'm going to ask him to maybe share with you. There was a town managers meeting today on the same subject. So Rodney, whatever you can share with us will be helpful.
Yes, so Wake County got the managers group together and shared some information with us. They had the public health officials on the call, and they have a certain goal they want to reach before they decide to lift the mask mandate, and they're asking the municipalities, if we would join in there with them. Two things they're looking at is the percent positivity, and the goal is for that to be less than 5%. And fortunately, right now, Wake County is at 3.5%. However, that's not the whole story. The other metric is the transmission rate. And I don't know if you remember the map that came out that had the color coding, the blue, yellow, orange, and red was high. So Wake County is still considered a high transmission county. And that means that there's over 100 cases per 100,000 persons in the past 7 days. So right now, Wake County is sitting at 111 cases per 100,000. So the county would like for that to be 49. So they would look at or recommend that we not lift the mask mandate until the positivity rate remains under 5 and the transmission rate is 49 or less. And 49 would make it yellow. If you're looking at the colors, it would be in the moderate range, and it would be yellow. So those are some of the things they're asking. The other thing that will allow for now that the vaccine's been approved or is about to be approved for kids of, older kids of that would allow more kids to get vaccinated, for one thing. So, so that's what they're looking at. They want those two data points to be within that range before the mask mandate is lifted. So,
And I would just observe that I think having worked with Wake County on this matter was a good and a wise thing to do. I know the analogy was used in a conversation I had that, we're hopefully in what some could say is sort of a final lap on this thing, and the thought was given that it would be a shame to to slack up too much at this stage of the process when we've made the progress we have and we think we're on the verge of getting where we need to be. But we're not there yet, and of course with wintertime coming on, I don't think anybody knows exactly how that impact will be. So council, I would ask you to make your thoughts known on this matter. I think the county is prepared to issue its new mandate extension as of Thursday or Friday, and so we need to share some word with them. I think there's wisdom in continuing the path and track that we're on, but I'm going to ask council to weigh in on that. So I'll start. Go ahead.
Yeah, I would say one other thing that was talked about is, with us entering the winter months and the holiday season, it's likely going to be more gatherings and those type of things. And the Delta, last year we saw a lot of deaths during the winter season, and then the Delta variant came about, and the kids led the Delta case rate. And so there was a concern about that. So that's why there's a push to get kids vaccinated now. So that's some of the other drivers for wanting to continue the mandate longer.
Okay, thanks, sir. And I will entertain comments by council, and/or I'm going to probably suggest that we take a vote on this matter. So, Ms. Behringer, would you care to offer up any comments you have?
Sure. Like everyone else, I feel like that the masks are a nuisance and an annoyance and so forth and so on. However, I will relay something that my oldest son is a doctor, and I talked with him early on about the virus, and he said there are a lot of unknowns, but two things we do know, and that is that masks work and social distancing works. So I am willing to continue with the mask mandate with the thought toward our social responsibility to those around us. Everything we do affects somebody somehow. It's not just me and me alone. I look forward to the day when it's not a problem anymore, but I will continue to endure wearing the mask as long as necessary to keep those around me safe.
Okay, Mr. Dellinger?
I'll concur with Mayor Pro Tem Behringer and your comments as well. I think the data is very strong. If you look at the decline in hospitalizations and infections since the mandate went into effect, we've had a steady decline in the county, and there's a strong correlation. I think we've learned throughout this pandemic that letting up on the gas too soon can be very problematic, and like the Mayor Pro Tem said, I don't like these masks either. I don't think there's anyone who loves wearing them. And I think it's been wise of us to follow the county's lead on this to avoid confusion and protect everyone. So those are my comments.
Okay, I'll go that way, Mr. Vance.
I concur with what's been said. I don't think I can add any more than what's been said thus far. Again, I would just say this, they are annoying. They really are. But they work. Okay?
Okay, I'll go to Mr. Singleton.
Mr. Mayor, I'll say this time what I said last time when we discussed the mandate. Whether we have one or not, the people that are going to wear masks are already wearing them, and the people that aren't going to wear masks aren't wearing them. So whether they have a mandate or not, we know people who choose to wear them are wearing them, and people who choose not to wear them are not going to wear them. So a mandate or not, that's just the way it is. And of course, as you know, I do a lot of traveling down the eastern part of the state, and don't see many people wearing masks. That's just the way it is. It's just further you get away from the metropolitan areas, just less, in more rural areas, just less people choose to wear the mask, even in busy businesses. So, whatever way we go is fine with me, but I just think that people have already made their minds up whether or not they're going to wear a mask. And they know if they go to say a church and they try to wear a mask, they accept that. If they have to go to a certain business, they accept that. And even people who refuse to wear them elsewise will wear them there, but they choose to wear, people have already chosen whether or not they can wear a mask, mandate or no mandate. So that's just the way it is.
Okay, Mr. Matthews.
I agree with everybody else on one thing. I detest these things, and I've made no secret about it, and I agree with Mr. Singleton. I do a lot of traveling too, and once you get out of the greater Wake County metropolitan area, it's 50-50, whether it's a Walmart or a restaurant. Or what blows my mind, you got to put the mask on to walk into a restaurant, but the minute I sit down, I can take it off. I ain't figured that one out yet, but I'm sure there's some logic there. But I'm curious, how many towns in Wake County are not going along with the mask mandate or whatever you want to call it from the county? I know all the towns are not. Which ones are not? Just out of curiosity.
Well, all are going to be talking about it pretty soon for this next round coming up. But I know Fuquay did not, and I don't remember beyond that who did not.
I think Apex did not.
Yeah.
There was almost a split, I think. I think there were 6
Yeah, I'd have to go back and
maybe
look.
that had the mandate, and maybe 5 who do not. Well, Raleigh and Cary obviously had one, but they sort of created their own. And so, Fuquay, Apex,
Was it Wake Forest?
Wendell, Wake Forest was one who did not. I think Wendell, I think Zebulon did. Yeah, but
Remember? I had that
I don't
last
have it
time.
right in front of me, but I could certainly get that information, sure enough, yeah.
Yeah, Apex did not.
But, we can do what we're going to do, and I still go along with what Mr. Singleton said. I can go into food stores in Garner, and some people got them on, some don't. Everybody kind of, the one thing I do see consistent is the social distancing type thing. Everybody keeps their space, and it's something we've come to learn, and spots are generally on the floor anyhow, no matter where you go. I know some of the gyms, you go in, they're not. 1 or 2 might be wearing them. I don't know. It's we can do what we want to do, but people, like Grace said, they're going to do what they want to do anyway. So, and with half the towns doing it and half not, it is what it is.
Mr. Mayor, that list was Garner, Knightdale, Morrisville, Rolesville, and Zebulon. along with Cary and Raleigh in the
Okay,
current
okay,
mandate.
Okay. This may be sort of a spurious, I won't say it's an argument, but it's a statement, but I've believed at least with the mask mandate in place, we're joining some with our school system and hopefully supporting and setting a good example for our children, many of whom don't have any problems, I think, with wearing masks, and they're wearing masks. And I think if our children can do that, we as adults, until we can get through this thing, it's a reasonable thing to do. And again, it's not just a flippant sort of kind of a decision. I particularly agree with the what's the term I'm looking for? The metrics type rationale that will be used. Yeah, and I think you'll see as things move in the right direction, then this will get us closer to removing the mask mandate. At any rate, having said those things, I think last time there may have been a little bit of concern or confusion that the council didn't get a chance to vote on this, or maybe the mayor preempted that. So tonight I'm going to ask the council to formally vote and ask if you will support the town's continued stance and standing with Wake County and some of our other municipalities and maintaining the extension of the mandate. If you favor that status and that position, I would ask you to vote aye.
Aye.
Okay, 3 ayes here. If you're opposed to that position, would you vote no? Okay. By my tabulation, I believe there are 3 positive votes and maybe 2 abstentions.
I think that's,
You
I
had
think
no
that's
no
5
vote, so
positives.
you had a positive vote.
yeah. It's a majority.
Okay.
We could just say it's a majority.
Okay, all right. I mean, I want to be reasonable and fair about it, so, okay,
Politically
all right.
correct.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That is something we needed to get to the county. I had a conversation with Mr. Calabria, I guess it was the day before yesterday, and he appreciates the encouragement he's getting from the municipalities who are standing firm on this. So, with that said, I will now entertain thoughts from each council member and in terms of reports. And let's see, Mr. Matthews, maybe I'll start with you over here, sir.
All right. I did take an opportunity. We got early voting going on, of course, in Garner, and I voted Saturday, and I think I was 61 to 62. I stopped by there today and walked in and asked them how many had voted, and as of 2 o'clock, it was like 255, and that's for all the municipalities in a certain area here. So they weren't sure what that meant. Most of the people outside that were working there thought most of them were people from Garner. There were a few that they'd talked to, but most of them were from Garner. And the only other item, the Friday night event, I had opportunity to attend that, and it was quite an event. Got a chance to see a lot of people, and it was well organized. And matter of fact, on Saturday, went back uptown there and frequented one of the businesses I hadn't been in before other than Saturday night. So, but it was well done. I think the attendance was great. The kids had a good time, and so I hope we will continue that. And I know it's on the 4th, but this month it's on the 5th. I'd rather we just said the last Friday of the month. That way it'll cover it either way and create a little less confusion. That's just a thought. But I thought the event was really well done, and I did compliment our representative in the downtown Historic Garner. She did a really good job, so she was very pleased. So that's it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Singleton.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I agree with what Mr. Matthews said. It was signed down there also, as I think most of the council were. And well attended, having the kids there with the trick or treat on the track. I think kids were excited, also vendors. I know that I bumped into Mari and she was helping hand that candy to the vendors so they could make sure people had candy. I did have someone come up to me and ask me if I was the mayor, they could take their picture with me because I was standing beside the mayor. And she just, I think, got confused when I think her mother said, go ask the mayor if you can get your picture with him. And so she came to me as the mayor, and I said, no, you've got the wrong person. This gentleman will be glad to take your picture with you. And he did. So, and I got out of the way so I wouldn't not be in the picture. But anyway, true story. Is that not correct?
That's correct. I never did see the picture, by the way, but at any rate, yeah, he's right. We were chatting and so forth, so,
But
yeah.
anyway, it's very well attended. I think people will enjoy it. You know, having the parking team there, I think helped
Yeah.
because you've got, you know, the club behind the Lions Club is only so big. The club on Parker Street where the houses were is only so big, but that helped definitely. Parking has had to be something that's going to be considered as we continue with downtown. And I know that the consultant we have, LM, yes, is that's something that they specialize in. So their advice and suggestions as we move forward in regards to parking and how to accommodate vehicles will certainly be strongly, should be strongly considered what they recommend and how to proceed. So anyway, it's well attended and glad to see it.
Thank you.
Beautiful weather too. I mean,
Yeah, it was.
all three of them had good weather.
Yeah.
The first one was hot for the first couple of hours, but other than that, they've been nice.
Yeah. That was a good chance to show off our rec center, really, too.
2 times in a row to show off the rec center.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
it's really, really nice.
Ms. Behringer, council reports.
Well, I'll have to echo what Councilmember Matthews and Singleton said. It was a wonderful event. I got to be the hall monitor again, and I didn't have to turn anybody in.
Good.
So that was fun. I had a wonderful time watching the children pass by in their little costumes and bags full of candy. And there was a pastor of a local church down there that was so excited because he gave away 150 bags of candy in 30 minutes.
Good gracious.
So that was, it's just a really well not accepted, but appreciated event by everybody who was there, no matter who they were. And I am looking forward to the next one.
I can't help but, and you'll forgive me, I can't help but reminisce just a slight bit. If the late Jackie Johns were on this dais here and hearing this, he would be referring back to his sort of a motto where he was saying, "Eat at your candy and visit your dentist." I
More
guess.
Eat
candy
more
and visit
candy.
your dentist.
That's right. Yeah. So at any rate, Mr. Dellinger.
Just what they said about the event. Just really good to see all the kids in the costumes and see the rec center open and be an extension of that event has been great on both occasions. It's been really great to have that kind of extension of Main Street and activity. I just want to thank everyone who comes out. It's been great. There have been people, longtime residents and new folks all coming in, so it's been good. And people got to see the mural as it's getting finished. It's almost done. But yeah, it's just good to see things, a little bit of normalcy.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vance.
I'm sorry I was not able to make any of the events last week, to include the meeting and the event on Friday night, but it's good to hear that the activity is going well down there. I would just say that I hope I'm not occupied the next time we have one of those, so I can be able to attend. And just want to let everyone know that we will continue on with filling the last few positions we have on the human resources side of the house. So we're working on those now.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, Ms.
I
Behringer.
might add one more point. I thought it was really a good reflection on parenting in Garner and watching the little ones, because they would pass by and you smile at them and say hi, and they would just kind of like, or, raise their little hand up just a little bit and keep on going, like, I'm not supposed to talk to strangers.
Yeah.
It was really cute.
Sure. Okay, and the last thing, or the only thing the mayor will share is, I want to thank this council for, for your supportive activities like these, but more specifically for your assistance with bond presentations. There have been a number at different places, different civic clubs. There have been, of course, some Facebook things, but appreciate all of you stepping up, and I would encourage you to continue encouraging our citizens to be aware of them. I talked to a gentleman or his wife today about those, and maybe sometimes there's confusion about whether or not it's just a 2 cents on this, or whether it's 2 cents on the 100 or whatever. But at any rate, thank you for the work you're doing there, and stay the course through the election, if you will. Ms. Jones, I don't think I gave you an opportunity to see if you had any reports you wanted to make to us.
I don't have a report for tonight, but I will have some closed sessions Monday evening regarding litigation and real estate acquisition.
Okay, thank you, all right. Mr. Hodges, or everybody clear? Okay, so council, unless there's anything else to come up to the good, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, moved and properly seconded, okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, and it's so ordered. Thank you very much. We'll see you at our next.